Now I'm going to start with a batch consolidation, and I have working papers open right here, and the file that I've opened is called International Investments Limited. This company has to have 3 subsidiaries set up, and one of the subsidiaries has 2 divisions that need to be set up. Now we're going to use a batch consolidation for the first 3 entities and a real-time consolidation to bring the 2 divisions into the subsidiary file a little bit later. So let's move right into the consolidation. I'm in a parent file, and this particular parent file is a top-level dummy file. I'm going to bring in all the subs that have the trial balances. So as you can see here, I have no trial balance at the moment. I'm going to go to the engagement menu and select Consolidate. That's going to take me into the consolidation dialog, and here you can see the International Investments Limited file name that I'm currently in. That's coming from the engagement properties. Now before I start bringing in any entities, I need to go into the properties of the top level entity and make sure that there is an abbreviation available, because the abbreviations allow us to specify individual entities when we're looking at specific balances. I'm going to keep this real simple. I'll use the IIL for International Investments Limited. Now all the other information at this level is grayed out because we're at the parent level at this moment. So I'm just going to simply click OK and come back to the consolidation dialog. As I mentioned, I'm going to start off with a batch consolidation, and I need to add a new entity to this consolidation, so I'll just select New. Now my first entity is going to be Australia Investments Limited, and as I added that, you may have noticed that the abbreviation automatically filled in with the first letter of each word. Now I like that abbreviation. The key to the abbreviations is they must be unique for all entities within the consolidation, because we're going to be pointing to them to get specific balances out of specific entities. Now this file does exist on my computer. It's an external file, so I'm going to browse for that particular file to find Australia Investments Limited right here, and I'll select it. Note that this file is a compressed file. We can tell by both the icon and the extension that is being viewed on my screen. I'm going to click Open, and it will bring it in to the path for me. Now, if it's the first time I'm doing a consolidation, I'm going to want to include prior balances. However, when I reconsolidate or when I perform a year-end close at the consolidated level and bring in balances for next year, I won't want to bring in their prior balances next year because it will overwrite my consolidated balances this year. We can also bring in budget, forecast, and custom balances, as well as applying foreign exchange. Now, all of my files have already been converted to local currency, so I'm not going to apply foreign exchange, but if you had the foreign exchange set up in the Working Trial Balance Foreign Exchange tab, you may want to apply that so it's coming into the local currency locally. We can exclude zero balance accounts so that we don't get extra accounts in there, and we can enable account synchronization so that if Australia Investments Limited adds more accounts, when I'm prompted to reconsolidate, it will bring those accounts in. This is not the SmartSync type of synchronization that many of you are familiar with. And if you're not familiar with SmartSync, please do give us a call and check that out as well. We also have the ability to unmap new external accounts. This may be because you might be supporting a different mapping system at the consolidated level than you do at the individual entity level. At the bottom here, we have a fractional contribution to parent entity. Now, if you're truly doing a consolidation, this will always be 100%. Any minority interest that you have to back out would come in the effect of the adjusting entries that you do after the consolidation to back that out. If it was non-controlling interest, you wouldn't put it in the consolidation area. It would likely be an at-cost investment or something to that effect. However, if you're doing a joint venture, then you would only put in the percentage of ownership of the joint venture for the periods that it was owned, so that it would properly take that percentage of all of the accounts and bring it into the consolidation. Now, down the right-hand side, I have the OK button that will accept what I've already entered here. Cancel will get me out of this. Help takes us into our online help screen to tell us a little bit more about the new entity dialog and other information about consolidations. The last button is the Settings button. And the Settings button gets me into the engagement properties for the entity that we're bringing in. Now, this is not currently populated. However, it will be once I process the consolidation, because Australia Investments Limited has engagement properties already predefined. So I'm not going to fill this in. If I knew that that entity didn't have it filled in, I would fill it in here so that I would have the appropriate information associated with this particular entity. This is especially important when we're dealing with U.S. tax jurisdictions where different entities might have different tax entities, C Corp, S Corp, partnership, and nonprofit that we're pulling together. Again, I'm going to leave this area alone. We also have the Contact 1 and Contact 2 for Australia Investments Limited. Now, some of this information will be populated based on the information that is included in the Australia Investments Limited file once I process consolidation. So I clicked OK in the new entity dialog, and now you can see under International Investments Limited, we're developing a tree structure of ownership for Australia Investments Limited underneath it. The rectangular icon indicates an external working paper file, and the fact that there's a breakdown in the center tells me that that's a consolidated file, but as soon as I apply or hit consolidate all, it will take care of that for me. I'm going to go back to the top level and add another new entity. Canada Investments Limited. Now this is the same thing as Australia Investments Limited. There is an existing file, so I browse to it, open it up, and again it's a compressed file, and click Open. Now all these properties hold true for Canada Investments Limited that I just walked you through in Australia Investments Limited, including the settings, which is currently blank. So I'm going to click OK here and bring in the third entity, which is USA Investments Limited. And again, all properties hold true. Clicking OK. In the event that I wanted to create some sub-reporting nodes, for example, we have a couple Commonwealth countries and then we have the USA. We may want a Commonwealth node for separate reporting and then USA node for separate reporting and then the International Investments Limited level. To create a node, what I can do is just click New, and I'll call this Commonwealth Countries, and click OK. Now for my Commonwealth countries, I'm going to move this up to the top, so we'll just drag it around to reorder these items. Okay, I'll drag these ones down into Commonwealth. And so now we've got Commonwealth countries and USA country, and we've got international. So we're creating, at each step, we're creating different reporting capabilities, different reporting levels. Now, this has not yet been consolidated. So what I'd like to do is hit the Apply button. Now, keep your eye up here beside Yearly when I hit the Apply button. Well, in a moment anyways. First of all, it's recognizing that my entities are currently compressed, and I need to uncompress them to consolidate. So I'm going to say yes to all. That'll save me a little bit of time. So USA Investments Limited is then uncompressing, Australia is uncompressing, and Canada is uncompressing and expanding those files. It is now reaching into the trial balances information to pull that information into my file. And because I had the working trial balance open in the background, we saw that happen immediately. And we see the entity information and the account number at the top here. Also, where it said yearly before, we now have an entity dropdown because this is another filter that can be applied to our documents in the document manager to control what values come through in our file. So I'm going to click OK here. Now, wherever we saw an account number previously in working papers, you're now going to have also an entity field. And in the entity field, if I right-click on the heading, I can show the long name, which we're currently showing. I can show the short name, which is just the 3-digit code that I utilized. And I have the ability to show both. So that's a personal preference, and we just right-click and show what we want to show here. Now, we'll notice that account numbers are identical in this situation for USA, Australia, and Canada. I need to point out that that is not a requirement. We do not consolidate based on account number. We consolidate based on all of the other groupings that are available within working papers. The fact that the account numbers are identical in my example is just because all my files were created from the same trial balance. That is not a requirement again, and many of the entities that you consolidate, you likely have a situation where each entity has its own structured chart of accounts. So I'm going to be consolidating based on map number in my file. So if I go to the document manager right now and scroll down to say the cash document, what we'll see is the USA Investments Limited entity and then my Commonwealth countries. Now this shows up in the order that it appears under Engagement Consolidate. So if I were to move Commonwealth countries above USA, if I can get that to move, there we go, and then hit OK, what should happen is it should refresh and rearrange my listing. Now many people don't like to see the consolidated entities in this particular layout, although this is the total consolidated balance for the current year and this is the total consolidated balance for the prior year. Most people prefer to see each entity in its own column with the eliminating entries off to the right-hand side to get to the final total. Now going back to the document manager, what I'm going to do is make a copy of my cash document. And in my properties of my cash document, I'm going to change this to A.C for consolidated, and I'll just call it consolidated view. Now, to get the consolidated view, we have a checkbox, consolidated view. And when I click OK and open up the document, we now have the entities with their entity abbreviation showing across the top. Now remember, CWC was a note, it doesn't have any accounts in it, and International Investments Limited was basically a top-level node without any accounts. But we do have Australia, Canada, and USA Investments Limited. So if I want to get rid of these extra ones, I can just right-click on them and hide those ones that are always going to have zero balances. Now in the event that one of these had a cash account that was, say, 1,000 instead of 101, 102, 103, where that entity had the account 1,000 with a balance, it would show up with the balance under the entity and zeros for all other entities. And similarly, it would receive a 0 for any account it did not have in its own trial balance, where the other entity would have the balance being displayed. So right now I've got the 3 sub-entities, but I mentioned that there's also a couple divisions associated with one of these files. That's going to be the Canada Investments Limited file today. So let's go back to the consolidation dialog, and in Canada Investments Limited, I'm going to right-click here. I can get into the properties, click OK, I'm OK there already. New entity, which will be a sub of Canada Investments Limited here. I can delete this entity, expand and collapse, and I can open it directly. Now when I select open from here, it's going to open a separate instance of Caseware Working Papers for me. And it opened on my other screen, so let me bring it over here. And now what I can do is, you can see I'm in Canada Investments Limited, and in the trial balance I have the Canada Investments Limited accounts, but I'm going to go to Engagement Consolidate in Canada Investments Limited, and I need to first of all, again at the top level, go into Properties and put in the appropriate abbreviation. This one is CIL, and I'm going to match it to the top level consolidation. And click OK.